Hey guys, thanks so much and welcome to the Game Your Future podcast. I am Daniel and I am joined by our special guest today, Peter, or Polish Peter, you may know him, who is a transformational mind shift coach, connecting life and business together. So, Peter, thanks so much and welcome. How are you?
Well, great, man. Thank you for having me. I never thought I would be on a gaming podcast, but here we are. I'm excited to see how I can impact your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So those that have watched or have seen the show before is it's really about taking these kind of these understandings, how gaming can help in real life, and part of it, and what I like to propose is these kind of coaching services to say like, hey, how can I help you transform? And you're right there. You're doing this too. So tell me about kind of your process and kind of like how let's start at the beginning. Like, how did you get started as a transformational coach?
So back in 2011, I mean, I could go back as far as I was born in Poland back in the day, so I came here in 90s. But back in 2011, I went through some really hard times in my life. I ended up getting divorced. And after that, I was now in a very good place mentally. So I got myself into this quote unquote mastermind group where, I've had people who can help me kind of shift what's going on up here. And during that mastermind, as I was in that group and helping others and poking at others, like asking the questions, tough questions, things like that, the group kind of said, listen, you should be a coach because you got the skills. So that's where it came from. And from that point on, I think I started coaching in 2015, and here we are today. And I love what I do, how I can help people.
That's fantastic. And so when we talk transformation, it's one of the things that I wonder if is kind of a buzzword sometimes that people
Mhm.
don't fully understand necessarily what it is that we do as coaches. So I guess in your own words, like how would you describe what it is kind of the results that you get for people and when they're saying like we're helping with transformation, like what does that look like for some of your average clients?
Yeah, so I will tell you this all comes from all kinds of different walks of life. I have some examples I can tell you. Like I had transformation to me means that you were acting in life in one way, and then something happens, or the conversation, or something happens in your life, or whatever, and all of a sudden you're in a different way. And we've all experienced this if you really think about this. I mean, you probably, as you were listening to this podcast, you probably did something when you were 10 years old that you no longer do. So there was a moment and you all of a sudden stop doing that thing and you transform to do something other thing. So some of my clients, the transformation that I have, like one person pops into my mind. I've had one conversation with him back in 2019. It was June 1st, 2019. And that was the last time he had a drink and he was an alcoholic. And last time he drank and he's been sober since then. In fact, he no longer um, talks about himself as a recovering alcoholic. I've had conversation with people who, there's one lady who had blotches of different skin, like it will break up. Her skin will break up all over the place, and doctors couldn't help her. And she went all kinds of different creams and doctors. And we had some conversations with her, and she did the exercise that I've had her do. And the transformation came from that 3 days after she did those exercises, all those kind of skin things went away. Because a lot of
Wow.
it was what's going on in her head, in her mind that we were holding on to. So those are the kinds of things that when I'm talking about transformation, that we all experience this in life, I think, as we're growing, but we don't actually pay attention to that. And then when someone comes alongside of you and starts asking and giving you some um, conversation that's going to transform how you look at life, how you act, all of a sudden that's when the transformation actually occurs.
That's fantastic. And I really love that, like, because what it kind of sounded like too, like that stress was manifesting for her specifically
Mhm.
as this thing. So like it's amazing how stress can affect the body. So being able to kind of
Oh, yeah.
overcome the stress and like the results that follows, that's really cool. Because I think in games we see that too, and there's kind of the two aspects of it where you go through like the character goes on a journey and in like a transformation, usually in a narrative through a game, like
Mhm.
similar to like a movie, where they come out the other side and they're like they've grown, they've changed as a result. One of the I'll say one of the hiccups potentially I think with games and gamers too is that you kind of pick like because games are more limited in a sense where it's not like life where you can kind of go and do anything, where
Mhm.
games you're kind of on rails for a while. So so sometimes you get stuck into a pattern that says like, well, this specific character can only do these things, right? Because that's the way the game is programmed. And so I wonder if some of that sets in to the gamer mind to say like, well, I'm an adventurer, which means I can't go do whatever, right? Like, I can't do real estate or something like just as a crazy example. So what would you say to somebody that is that and you've probably had clients, right, that are kind of stuck in a mindset, stuck in some kind of an identity that they can't shake. So if they're like, well, that's not for me, Peter, what would you say to those kind of people?
Right. It's a great question. So I'll give you an example. Right before we actually shut, I talked to you about my son. So my youngest, when he was growing up in his, 10, 11, 12 years old, he was really into gaming. And this kid spent hours and hours on gaming, and he was like the first shooter games and then the third shooter games, especially we got really good at I can't remember what the game was. It was a very popular game. There's like millions and millions of users on that, platform.
I'm
And
gonna
he
guess
played
Fortnite. But
Fortnite was one of them, and there was
hmm,
another one. It was the first shooter. Oh man,
I'm
I
gonna
wish I
guess
could.
Call of Duty,
Yes,
PUBG,
Call of Duty.
Call of
There
Duty.
you go. Look at
Yep.
you.
Yep.
So obviously, I'm not the expert in this. All right, but anyway, so those two games in the Call of Duty, I think it was, he got so good that he was in the top 100 across the entire world. Like he's,
Wow.
top 100. So what happened? Well, he was practicing this and he was playing for a very long time. So we started looking from the perspective how I can maybe game the game, right? And I can learn different tricks and how I can even got a different remote because he started looking, okay, this remote is much better if the trigger, like it's going to be quicker and things like that, right? So as he was going through this process and he got to the top one, top was it 0.5% of the population in that game,
Yeah.
then what ended up happening, people started coming to him, asking him if he can help them level up. And they would pay him to do that. And he would go on these tournaments, he would help them win. So how does that actually play out in his? Well, in today's world, this kid is a lot older now. He's no longer playing games like he used to. But what he did is he took the skill set that he got out of that because he started getting very aware and present to what are the skills that I've developed that has helped me to be able to go and use it in life. And most I find it like gamers don't look at it that way. Like I'm
Yeah.
just a gamer, I'm going and spending hours or whatever. But if you start looking and seeing what are the skill sets that I've developed because of this gaming, maybe I can think about it this way. I think gamers have to be very good at making decisions quickly, right? You have
Absolutely.
to make a decision very quickly. Well, think about this. Do you think that could help you in life in so many different aspects? Probably, right? So I've heard Elon Musk one time talk about that his top people when, and even I think he does, he plays video games a lot because that has helped him to become a lot quicker, right? A lot more agile and be able to go and make decisions quicker and see things differently. And I think that's a huge benefit. So if you look as a gamer, you look at the skills that you had to develop in order to become that gamer that you are, you could probably most likely apply them in the real life out there. Not saying real life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's when you start looking from that perspective, you start seeing, man, I got some skills.
Exactly right. And that's what I love about this channel, this podcast, and what I do, with my own coaching is that it's to do exactly that. It's to share how powerful and how much you can do as a gamer in the rest of your life, right? Yeah, and moving those skills because you picked on a really good one. Yeah, the quick decision making. Because whether it is like the Call of Duty, the shooter games, like you have to make split second decisions based on like the limited information you have to say like where's my team, where's the enemy, and trying to understand where you need to go. And you have to do this like constantly. And
Hmm.
it's fantastic. And I always like to say that I think gamers are the best problem solvers on the planet because we do it for fun.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You don't get
So
paid. The other thing that I find a lot with the gamers is think about it this way. When you started playing whatever game that you started playing, you're probably horrible at it, right? You're not very good at it. And the more
yep.
you keep practicing and doing it over and over again, now you became really good, like my son, right? Now, how does that tell you? that tells me that whatever I end up doing in life, whether it's, I don't know, playing basketball, or whether it's going and, let's say, real estate, investing real estate, making offers, I can take the skill of constantly repeating and doing this thing consistently, because guess what? In gaming, I'm consistently getting on there. I'm consistently making actions. I'm consistently making decisions. And over time, I've learned to become really good. How can I take that into life when it comes to real estate? Well, the consistency. What I'm really good at is being consistent. So now let's take it out there and start applying that skill set to whatever I'm doing. And I think that's what you said about gamers are the problem solvers in the world, because that skill set can carry them for long ways.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think it's really all gamers, right? Because and I love the example with your son as far as, being in the top 100 of like Call of Duty, and then so people come to him and he has that expertise that people want. And of course, we look at the wide array of gaming. Not everyone, right? The I'll call it the bottom 99%. They're not in the top 100. But at the same time, it's not that they don't have skills, right? And it's understanding everyone has these abilities, right? So yes, some people are further ahead potentially in certain aspects or certain skills, but there's also a wide array of genres of game, right? So like the shooters, especially with like yes, with the quick decision making, I think all games have problem solving. But there's other genres too that really help with like whether it's creative thinking or resource management, especially with some of these kind of builder games or city games and or even Minecraft, right? Just the
Mhm.
creativity of it and understanding where the resources are. It's just so powerful to me. So like so I guess the question for you is like, so awesome that you're sending the top 100, and it's like, how do we echo the point? This is like, yeah, the 99%, you're also valuable too. How would
So
we
how
express that to them?
how do we express it to whom?
To really just to any of the average gamer, right? Because I'm worried that like some people might think like, well, that's great for the top 100 players, but how does me as the average gamer see that same result? Or,
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. So here's the thing. I think um, what I would have you consider is looking from the perspective what conversation is going on in your head, because I think that's a big aspect for the gamers. Like, and what's the reason that I'm getting on the games, and if I'm trying to avoid something, or just looking to actually go and have a great experience, and this is my time, then this is where I shine, or whatever it might be, right? So the conversation in your head really, really matters. And what ends up happening, whether you're at that bottom 20%, you're middle, 30%, or your top 10%, you are at that particular place in your journey exactly where you need to be. But what ends up happening, a lot of us beat ourselves up over whatever it is that's going on. And when we beat ourselves up over those kinds of things, we put ourselves down. But guess what? We can be our best cheerleader, or we can be our worst critic, right? And what ends up happening, if we're our worst critic, that's when things start to get not in a good place. So my encouragement to wherever you are, notice like at that particular time, if you work backwards in this environment. Let's say you started playing this game 6 months ago or 2 months ago, and look how far you've come up to this point from where you started. If you've gotten better, what does that tell you? That tells you that you are much better than you were previously. So that helps you to build up on the next level and have you different conversation in your head, because that's what's going to help you carry outside of this, environment and anywhere in the world. So sometimes looking back, how far you've come can help you get to the next part of your life. Does that make sense?
absolutely, it does. I love that analogy because I think what I've heard before, and I think to echo for our listeners is that when you, especially, I'll say the worst is comparing yourself, right? Comparing yourself to those that are ahead, right? So I love
Yep.
the analogy of like maybe you've started playing this specific game, whether it is Call of Duty something, and you're terrible at it because you've been playing for 2 months, and you compare yourself like, look at all these people that are doing so great, but they've been playing for years, and it's like, well,
Mhm.
of course they're better. They've had a lot more practice, right? So like,
Yeah.
but understanding the journey where you are. So let's not compare ourselves when it's not equal, first off, because it never is. And I think the celebrating along the way, though, like looking back to say how far you have come, like, are you better than you were yesterday? Like, yeah, if there's any comparison to be made, it's you of previous, right? To show that
Yeah.
you're growing, and to borrow from from video games, that celebrating along the way, the small wins, helps so much to help enforce that, to help empower that, to give that sense of joy of showing that you're making this progress, right? Because
Right.
there's a whole reason that we have like leveling up and like these kind of systems in video games, because these little micro wins really do change, like really do change us and change our enjoyment and show this sense of progression, which is so
Yeah.
powerful.
Exactly. I mean, I think comparison is the enemy of progress. I mean, comparison to the outside world, because think about there's this been in the society, I think there has been this belief that's been put on us of keeping up with the Joneses kind of a thing, right?
Yeah,
And doesn't it goes everywhere, I think. So now when it's keeping up with the Joneses in the gaming world, and if you start looking from that perspective, you are not going to be in a very good place. So comparing to the, worst version that you've come from before, I think that's the if you think about it, at the end of the day, you have you're competing against yourself, and that's it.
yeah.
And if you compete against that version that was previously the level 4, and now you're level 6, guess what? Rock on. Let's keep moving.
Exactly right. So guys, for those listening, yes, comparing yourself only to where you were and showing that progression, showing that growth, that's going to be the key to success. Not comparing yourself to others, especially those much further ahead, that you see that gap that you're like, oh, that's why am I not there yet? And it's like, well, they have a different situation, they have a different journey. Focus on your journey and where you've been and where you're going. That's going to be the
Exactly.
key.
Yep.
That's fantastic. So I wanted to shift to another kind of, I'll say, challenge that I think gamers have too, and wanted to get kind of your perspective on this, getting these kind of transformations through coaching, where, again, comparing to the gamer, the video games, that when we play video games, typically we do take, we try to push these boundaries or take risks or take action, and we're learning and we're able to succeed. But there seems to be this mental block or this barrier that says, okay, well, I do that in a video game. What
Hmm.
happens when I get out into the real world? And suddenly there's real world consequences.
Right.
So again, it's one of these challenges that's come up with some of my clients, and wanted to get kind of your perspective to say, that's okay in games, but what about real life? And kind of showcasing that, it's the same skills, but now we have real world consequences. How would you handle this kind of a discussion?
Right. So what I would say is this: think about it this way. In the gaming world, there's probably some form of fear that you've had right before you're about to take that action, right? Or making that decision. And what happened? You win in an instant moment, you win and you make the decision and you move forward. Now, sometimes you probably it was a bad decision because all of a sudden you got killed, right? And you're out. But other times it helps you advance. So then when you go into the real world, guess what? What's really showing up right then and there? It's the fear, right? The fear is popping up and looking to, okay, how do I actually translate it into the real world? Because, yeah, it was easy in the game, but now I'm in the real world. So it's not that thing that you are looking to do in life, it's the fear that is stopping you from making that decision. So if it's the fear, notice the fear, I've already handled it in the game. So if I can translate that and go and see, okay, if I make that decision, step through that fear, because guess what? You're not going to be able to avoid it. It's always going to be there. Everybody's got a fear. Even like, Elon Musk's and all these people, they have fear. So if I'm just able to step through it, which I know I can because I did in there, now I start making a decision and see how it happens at the other side, right? And then I can make another decision because I've done it in a different perspective. So, um, again, it's going back to that conversation in here and the fear that is actually driving it, not specifically the decision, but the fear that it is.
That's great. So it's understanding that you've overcome the fear of the decision in the video game and translating that same overcoming the fear to the action that you're trying to take in the real
Right.
world to say, yeah, yes, the action is different, sure, but it's the fear of inaction or the fear that, what if that you've already overcome. So it's just using that same skill that you've developed, right?
Right. And think about the other two is this. In a game, because you have to make such a big decisions, how many times do you dwell on that decision in a video game? You don't dwell on it. You don't think about what if a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
You make decisions. Now, what ends up happening in the world, in the real world out there, you go, well, what if this? And you start to dwell on it. The longer you sit in that decision, guess what? The worse it's going to get. So, no, recognize it. The fear and the what ifs, that's when people start to trip up. Now, if you take the skill set that you develop there and start looking from the perspective, okay, I've done quick decisions here. I know my choices, A or B. Let's take a quick decision and let's keep moving. And you're going to start seeing which way you're going to have to go.
I love that. That's so good. So just being able to know, yeah, just having that direction too, because that's something I feel like that gamers could definitely practice too, because this in the same way that like the decision making, I think there's the kind of direction and focus, the actions for gamers. It's because it's limited in a game, so that it feels like kind of your actions are on rails sometimes, as they say. It's
Yeah,
just like, well, you're going down this path, and then and then it's the same thing. You get into life, and it's like you can go anywhere, you can do whatever you want, you can be whatever you want.
yeah.
Whereas the game is so limited.
Yeah, I think the other missing element is this. Think about it this way. In a game, there is a vision, there is the light at the end of the tunnel where I'm trying to get to, right? Whether it's finishing the game or getting to level 20 or whatever it might be. There is this vision, there is this plan where I'm going after. And I feel like I have some steps. Now, in life, at least I wasn't, nobody ever told me to write a vision for my own life. Where do I want to end up in life? And put it on paper, write it down on paper. And when I started doing that, it's something in the future that I'm looking towards. And then I can work my way backwards to see what are the steps that I need to do. And then I start making decisions based on that future self, the future vision, rather the current circumstances. And that's what I think allows me to make better decisions during those times because I know if I make that decision, it's probably going to get me closer to that vision as opposed to just wandering out in the wilderness. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely, it does. So I think that, I don't know if I'll call it homework, but like something like an ask for the gamers, the audience at home, is to, if you don't already have a vision for yourself, right? Because I think you're absolutely right. Because we get out into the world and it's all reactionary, right? If you don't have a plan, if you don't have a vision, you don't know where you're going, it's all reaction. Like you're at the whim of the demands of whether it's your boss, your friends, your whatever society that says like, hey, you should do this, and you just kind of react. But you can make those, like you said, the better decisions for what you want, where you want to go, if you have that target, right? So
Yeah.
so for the gamers, it's basically having a real world quest, you can call it. So call it your own main quest that
Your own
says like,
game,
yeah, make it a
game of
game,
life.
make it fun.
Yeah.
So where are you going? So decide what that vision is for yourself. That's your new quest. That's, this is my main story quest. It's my story. So this is where I want to go. And then understand what it is, those actions that you have to take to complete that quest, to get to that vision. And you'll come up with those decisions along the way that says like, well, do I want to react to this situation? Or if I have to react, how should I react? Because there's definitely now a direction that you can go instead of, like you said, being lost in the woods.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm very cool. I love that.
That's fantastic. So I guess just in the interest of time, I want to make sure, was there anything else that we missed that you think that we should definitely cover, Peter, as far as making sure that gamers are getting the transformation from your perspective?
Well, I think a lot of times I'll just say one last thing about that is that at time we humans, maybe not just gamers, but we humans, we tend to get in our head. And one phrase that I have with some of my students that they tend to get in their head is I say this: once you're in your head, you're dead. So get out of your head. Because think about it, in your gaming, when you're in the gaming world, you're probably not in your head. You're just being in that moment, present in that moment, and you're doing whatever needs to be done. Use that to your advantage in real life. Get out of your head and be present in the moment and make a difference for you.
I love that. That's fantastic. Because yeah, I can think of so many games where you're not constantly doing the what ifs, like you said, or doing this long-winded decision making in your head. It's you're kind of you feel like you're in the monitor or the screen or in the controller. It's like react or take action based on the set of circumstances that you know. So you just feel immersed in that moment. So I love that. So pulling that out and saying like, do that. You can do
Exactly.
that in the real world. You have that skill. That's fantastic. Gosh. So Peter, this has been fantastic. Where can people learn more about you and what you do?
Well, so I actually have a book coming out, if that's okay for me to share.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think
Let us
will
know.
help the gamers on here. So the book is called Authentic Self Rebirth. And what that means is most of us don't really know ourselves very well. So we look for authentically who we are and then helping us create the vision. So there's two big parts in there. I give a lot of bonuses in there. If you will look to want to consider looking at this book, you can head over to myauthenticrebirth.com, and all the details are on there. And you can reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. That was I'm sorry, and we'll have the link for you
Authentic.
guys in the description below, but
Yep. My Authentic Rebirth.
My Authentic Rebirth.
Yep.
And the book, Authentic Self Rebirth, is the name of the book. So fantastic. So we'll definitely have the link for you guys. So for the book, for Peter's Instagram, everything there. So definitely check that out. Connect with Peter if you're interested, and especially living your authentic self, because I think that is so good. Because so many people I think are, I'll call it kind of the fake at work. Like they
Yep.
show up differently to the outside because they don't want to be feel judged or whatever, but then you kind of lose yourself in that regard and you don't really feel as fulfilled because you're not you at that point. So I love that.
Exactly.
So fantastic, Peter. So, and guys, if you want to check out as far as, leveling up your own skills and transferring your gaming skills to life skills, definitely check me out, dragonmorexp.com, and start your journey there today. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much, Peter. And before we go, I have one final question for you that I ask everyone, which is,
Okay.
what is your favorite video game?
My favorite video game?
If you had to pick one.
Oh, that's a hard question for me. I would say I played the Mario Brothers, the racing one. I love that playing with my kids. So yeah, that would be the one.
Perfect. There we go. Good old Super Mario Brothers, classic, and they've continued. They've done so well over the years. So I
Yep.
love that answer. So fantastic. Gosh. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.